nightmares is when you have to turn to somebody who you call a director. You're a director, and he doesn't even nobody reports to this person, but you're a director, and you are the chief technology, and you're this. That's what we all want to hear and be, and we want to do that. When really in 3 years it's going to completely change. And that is one thing I would say was a failure on our part. Was a big failure, and I would say the other big failure to me of our company is underestimating what it. It's really amazing because I think we all started our company where we didn't underestimate it, we just went after it. But all of a sudden, when the stress is hitting you and more, you still believe you can. The mistake you make is you're willing to get people to tell you things even though they're not true, and because they're afraid to tell you something because there's that much stress involved of just underestimating, whether it be raising money, whether it be hiring 2 employees, it could be hiring 3. So that's what I would say. The failures, those failures.
I think that, early on when I first started, I always kind of had like a plan B. Like, if this doesn't work out, I'll go back and I'll work for somebody else, or I'll go do this. And I think that fear of failure, really gripped me to a point where I was focusing less on the task at hand and what I needed to do, and more on just the issue of, okay, if I fail here, I'll just go do this. And so I'm thinking about this plan B more than I'm thinking about what's really in front of me. And so, I started this thing on my, I would just tell myself there is no plan B. Sometimes you just have to accept failure and go on and continue what you're doing, and stop thinking about, well, if this goes wrong, what's my fail safe? What am I going to lean back on? And so I think there's a lot of things I could have done differently, or things that I wish I would have approached, from a different angle. But at the same time, I don't really regret any of the decisions I make, because I think ultimately, it's our responsibility as business owners and entrepreneurs to not consider that plan B, because ultimately you got to go all in, or you don't go at all.
I agree with that. I think if I was to answer this question, I would say, looking back, what would I do? What would I change? Kind of picking up on what John's comment was. I think that I'd be really careful about the amount of equity that I would give up in my company, and who my partners are going to be. And I think that you first off, find something that you're passionate about, that you absolutely love, that you would do for free, and then pursue it with relentless persistence. Don't take no for an answer, because everyone will tell you that it won't work. But really plan out what you want this end result to look like in the end, and plan for success. And so I think I was a little bit loose, just as it went. You know what I mean? Like, oh, well, instead of giving out a title, we're giving out percentages, the company and stuff, So, and then it started to take off, and it really, it grew. And so I think that's a good experience, a good lesson for me personally.
Yeah. Can I add to that at all? I think we're kind of a small firm, but I think that there's a great book out there called From Good to Great. I don't know if you've all read this, but it's a really great book. But the second, he has this author has a couple different points on what it took for this, a couple different companies to make this leap to greatness, if you will. And the second point he makes is get the right people on the bus, the right people on the ship. And I think a lot of times what we do as business owners is we see a need, we see something we need help with, and we go out and we hire somebody to do it. But I would encourage you all to be slow to hire and quick to fire. Well, hopefully you don't have to fire anybody. But.
I'm going to jump in with him on that. Our staff studied Good to Great. It drives our company, the book. So you really need to read it. And when we got onto we took it a step further into exactly what he's saying, and we defined it. You cannot enter into our building unless you are honorable, unselfish, and generous. We call it HUG. And the first 15 minutes of your interview for any position in our company is on those 3 things. And we have sent people home after 15 minutes, got up and shook their hand and said, thank you for coming. You haven't asked me if I can, write code, or you haven't asked me if I know anything about marketing. You haven't asked, no, we're good, thank you. Because they did not have the ticket to get on our bus. They just didn't have it. Because we believe, we defined it as a staff that that's who we want on our bus, are people that are honorable, unselfish, and generous. And then the rest of it, it's easy. Whether somebody has a talent somewhere, but to get on our bus, you have to have that. To get in the seat on a bus, then we figure out where you're at. But I'm with him at all, hire slow, make sure they're the right people. Make sure a bad employee can destroy your company quicker than I'll get out. So.
Yeah, Tony Shee, the founder of Zappos, has a book, Delivering Happiness, and there's a lot spent on company culture and having the right people versus having the wrong people. So that's another good book.
The company culture isn't sliding down a fire pole in the middle of your thing and playing video game. We got 7 Wii stations. That's not company culture. Company culture is who are you? What do you want to be? The rest of it is just it comes from that. So.
What's the CEO's name from Zappos? Tony what?
Tony Shee, I think.
Tony Shee. There was an article written a couple months ago by this guy who just blogs about entrepreneurs and owning a business. And Tony Shee was quoted as saying that he had lost $100 million in his career in hiring the wrong people. $100 million. I'd like to make $100 million. He lost it that's what he said, by hiring the wrong people. So put an exclamation point on that thought.
Yeah. There's a lot in that book actually just about doing something you're making every day, something you're interested in, passionate about. And when he first sold his first company, I think there was a clause where he'd stay there for 2 years and it would double the amount of money he would make, something like $4 to $8 million or $8 to $16 million. After a year, he quit. He was like, I'm just not interested in doing this. Walked away from 6 or 8 or $4 million, I don't know what it is, but it says a lot about doing something you're passionate about. So last thing, because I think the most important part is for you all to ask questions, but I did want